Muscle Radio. I have on with me today's guest, Jose Francisco Espinosa. He's a four-time Natural Pro Card winner. He was the champion of the 2018 WNBF Pro Universe. I remember I saw Jose in social, back on Instagram in maybe 2014, and I thought, I get pretty good legs or whatever. And then I saw this guy. I was like, God damn. And I started to follow this guy. He had a great season last year if you didn't get a chance to take in any of his content from then. But I remember one thing that kind of blew my mind was there was this picture in the hotel room, and it was just that the right angle and the quads were just out there. And I saved that image. It's one of my absolute favorite images in natural bodybuilding. Seriously, man, it was awesome. But we're going to talk about Jose. We're going to talk about with Jose today about all sorts of different topics, his training style, his athletic background. Now I'm just going to pass over the mic and say, Jose, what's going on today?
Thank you, Connor. I appreciate you having me on your show, man. It means a lot. Well, a little bit about my background. First of all, my name is Jose Francisco Espinosa. I have been bodybuilding, for the last decade now, I'd say. I am a little older when it comes to the sport. I am 37, going on 38 years old. So I've been training for a long time. I started training back in high school and started getting more into it later down in college. I played soccer. That was my main thing when I was a kid, baseball and soccer. And I was always a small one, man, because I'm short. I'm only 5'7". So I was always a little guy getting pushed off the ball, things like that. So I started working out, going into the weight room. And it wasn't until I would think I'd say I'd start a little later than most people, not my teens, hardcore. I started in my 20s when I started bodybuilding. So I was always working out, going to the gym 5-6 days a week, lifting, but I had no idea what nutrition was at that point in time. And I just I had that addiction that we all have as bodybuilders, going in and seeing our bodies improve. So I continued. And at one point I got pretty big because I was just reading the Flex magazines, doing all the bro, super bro stuff. And I was just eating everything and anything and lifting as heavy as possible. Sort of what I do right now in the off season. I just really don't give a shit when it comes to, my macros in the off season, as long as I'm eating enough protein at least. So I got up to about, I'd say 190 at that point in time, 195. And a lot of guys at the gym were like, hey man, you should compete in a bodybuilding competition. You have you're stocky. You have a good build to you, in the off season, you should compete.
I'm just going to interrupt for a quick second.
Yeah,
how
many
years of training did you have at this point, Jose?
Honestly, I had about 4, maybe 5 years, just bro lifting 6 days a week, just going, doing one body part at a time.
Nice.
So I'd be doing a back and then maybe a little bit of arms, stuff like that. And I wasn't big on legs back then. I really didn't like training my legs that much.
Wow.
So yeah, so my legs came up afterwards. And I'll tell you how they came up. So basically, I jumped in, and in Colorado at that point in time, there was not any drug-tested natural bodybuilding. So I did my first. It was a natural NPC show, as they call. So it was polygraph tested, but it was not urine tested. So
really?
It was weird.
Wow.
So I did my polygraph. I passed that, and then I did the competition, and I ended up winning. So I did the novice and the open, being my first time. So I won the novice lightweight, and then I ended up winning the novice overall in my very first competition. So I was pretty stoked, because there's a lot of kids in this competition. And I did the usual, I did my first diet was hell. It was a 12-week diet, very low carb, shit ton of cardio. And I think I got down to 152 pounds, something like that. And ended up winning. And then I did the open class. And the open class was stacked because First of all, there was a lot of non-natural guys at an NPC show for an open class, and there were a lot of names that are actually now big in the bodybuilding game. So I competed against Brian Miner. So
Wow.
if you guys all know who Brian Miner is, he's a very big bodybuilder and powerlifter in the state of Colorado. He lives up in
quick side note, Brian actually coached me for a good period over my last off season. So yes, very familiar with Brian Miner, great guy, awesome physique. Check him out if you haven't seen him.
Continue. Yes, Brian, that's the very first time interaction I ever had with Brian Miner, and he ended up winning the overall. And then Courtney Samuel, another WNBF pro, competed there as well. At that point in time, but at that point in time, none of us were pros. We were all amateurs, so we were all up and coming. And I think this was like 2011.
I was just about to ask, 2011, right on.
Yeah, right around there, I think. So Brian was the only guy that showed up with striated glutes. And when I saw that, I was like, damn, I was like, Jesus Christ, what is this? How did you get so lean? And Courtney's a monster. He's African-American. He weighs like 205 on stage as a pro. So in the WNBF, he's a monster. So it was crazy. My very first, open bodybuilding experience. And, obviously I don't know what I placed because, it's only the top guy that wins a show in an NPC show.
Right.
So then after that, I got the bug. I was like, damn, I got to do better. I want to keep going. So I just continued. And then I started learning a little bit more about nutrition. And I learned more and more about nutrition just from websites. At that point in time, YouTube was not big in 2011. I don't even think Instagram even existed back in 2011 or 2012.
Did you coach yourself for your first prep?
Yeah, I did my own thing. So I was just pretty much doing a bro diet, eating tilapia and doing the things that we now know don't really work. But,
right.
It does work as long as, you're in a caloric deficit and you're burning more calories than you're consuming. So at that point in time, I lost, about 40 pounds. So then as I got on and on into more bodybuilding competitions, and I was the type of person that never took breaks. I was like, all right, that was in June. Then the next natural NPC show was in October. So I did like a little mini bulk, I would say, back in those days. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just, gained a little more weight. And I came back even better conditioning. So I was probably 5-6 pounds lighter.
Nice.
At that point in time. And my glutes were almost completely in for my second show. So I was super stoked about that. And I ended up taking second place at that NPC in an open show. So
untested?
Yeah. It was it was a polygraph test once again, because at that point in time, the promoter was polygraph testing.
This is so interesting because I've never competed in the NPC, being from Canada, but I was under the impression that all NPC natural events were just kind of urine analysis, and it was kind of
it was weird. So the promoter he's still here. His name's Jeff Taylor. He's a piece of shit. Pardon my French. So, anyways, I ended up doing that show, and that was all we had here in Colorado at that time. We didn't have anything else unless we wanted to travel. And I was just a novice, so I was like, I'm just going to compete here. And I really didn't know what natural bodybuilding was, like natural organizations at that point in time. So I ended up taking second at that open show. Then afterwards, I started getting, the bug. So I took a full, I would say like 8 months off, bulking into the next summer. At that point in time, I contacted Tyler Mayer from Team TNT, if you guys are familiar. So Tyler Mayer was my very first natural bodybuilding coach. And he introduced me to macros and to flexible dieting. And it was a completely different story from there.
Are we into the year 2012 now?
So 2012 into 2013, yeah.
Yes, that's when the flexible dieting and the macro type approach was gaining popularity. I remember going through it too, learning about it.
So at that point in time, Tyler, he's like, you can eat this and lose weight. I'm like, what the hell? At that point in time, we really didn't, didn't
it
think,
all blew our minds at first that we could just like have so many options after being limited for so long on like prep diets and whatever, right?
Yeah, and I'd say like 2012 and 2013 was the year of the Pop-Tart, when everyone's like, oh man, you can eat Pop-Tarts and get shredded.
Yeah. Yes.
So so at that point in time, I learned about macros, and I dieted down with him. And I think, this was 2013. So I ended up getting in the best condition at that point in time in my life. I came in striated glutes. My hamstrings were peeled. And I won my very first pro card. And that was the first year that the INBA/PNBA, so that was the first natural organization, showed up into Colorado.
Right.
So it was the Colorado State Natural. So it was like Natural Mr. Colorado. So I ended up competing against Courtney Samuel once again, who is that 220-pound guy. Right. And we pretty much tied. So they ended up giving us 2 pro cards at that point in time, which was pretty cool.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So I also think the promoter just wanted more guys to go pro, and
Right.
But
right.
Courtney and I were at that pro level by then. He was weighing. I had come in peeled. He came in super peeled, but I was a lot smaller, I'd say, back then in 2013. I was weighing about, on stage, I'd be like 149.
Do you remember how long your diet was?
With Tyler, I think I started my diet in November of 2012. And that show was the very end of May for my first show.
All right. So decently long diet for sure.
And then I continued after that.
Oh.
So then after that, I was like, all right, I want to keep going. So I decided to compete at a WNBF show. Back then, it was now an NFF show. So, and they did not allow me to transfer my pro card at that point in time, because some organizations, will allow you to transfer a pro card, or some will not.
Right.
So I had to go back as an amateur, and I ended up competing against Tori Washington. So throughout my amateur career, I was able to compete with some of the best pros that are now pros in the sport. So I ended up competing against Tori Washington. So he's a big vegan bodybuilder. Do you know who he is?
No, I haven't heard. I'll have to look him up. No, that's vegan, eh? That's interesting.
Yeah, Tori Washington. So he is
black dude.
Yeah, he's a black guy.
I may have seen him. Yeah. Cool.
He's got dreadlocks and stuff. So he's actually now an IFBB men's physique guy. So he
I've seen him. It's been a while since I came across his Insta, but I remember. Yeah, natty vegan, black guy, great genetics. Yep.
Yeah. So I ended up competing against Tori Washington in the overall, I believe, and he ended up beating me by like a point or something like that. So I'd always come up short when I was competing back in my prior days, like in the beginning of my career, I'd say. But that obviously gave me more fire to keep getting better and better. I was like, damn, I'm losing, but I'm so damn close to winning, because It could have been, bodybuilding is a sport where one judge could see something differently. So, one day it could go one way or one day it could go the other. So I ended up taking second that year. And then the following year, I was still with Tyler, and I'm like, all right, man, so I want to do the best show, the best amateur show for the WNBF. And at that point in time, it was the California Muscle Mayhem. And if you're a natural bodybuilder and if you're an amateur, that's probably the hardest show to get your pro card in.
This is when I first encountered you on social media. I don't want to set off your course here, but now I'm remembering this. I remember seeing the pictures. But go on, talk about the prep for that show. Talk about everything that surrounded it. I want to hear this for sure, because I remember that was a big show. So that year I was with Tyler again, and he was able to get my calories really, really high in the off season, and I think I have a pretty good metabolism in regards to dieting and stuff. I diet on high food and high carbs. I've been blessed with that. So I dieted down, and I think we started again in November, and that show is always in July. Yes.
And I wanted to do a warm-up show here in Colorado because I have friends and family, you know, that were following me at that point in time, and they all wanted to come support me. So I once again did a natural NPC show, and this was the last natural NPC show they had, and I think it's because of me. So I showed up to a stacked show, you know, NPC show. There was a lot of kids at this show, and I came in hella conditioned. My glutes were striated, you know, I was peeled. So I showed up and I did prejudging here in Colorado, and everyone's like, bro, you won that show hands down, no matter, you know, what everyone said. You know, when you have that feeling, you win the show.
Yeah.
So I show up to the night show, the PM show, and the promoter calls me out. He's like, hey, let me talk to you. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And he goes, we're going to have to disqualify you. And I'm like, why are you going to disqualify me? He goes, because you're a natural pro.
I've heard of this happening. This is insane.
I was like, come on, bro. I was like, seriously? I was like, number one, yeah, I am a natural pro. I got a natural pro card in a different organization. But I came here. I paid my fees. There's no laws that stated that I could not compete. And he's like, no. He's like, all these other guys here, you're going to take their opportunity from like going to a regional show, you know, if they want to go to USA's and, you know, that type of stuff. I'm like, number one, if these guys can beat me, you know, they should go to USA's, but these guys are not USA caliber when it comes to, you know, one of those big NPC shows to try to get your IFBB card in.
Right.
So he's like, no. And I remember I was like, all right, well, you should refund my money, and you should refund all my friend and family who already paid their way to come into the show. Nice. And I remember at that point in time, he was charging like $50 or $60 a pop for a night show.
Man, the shows have gotten so expensive these days, but
it's
go
ridiculous. So he goes, no, I can't do that. They already paid. So at that point in time, you know, I was livid. I have a short temper sometimes, so I popped because, you know, my parents were there. I'm like, you better refund my family. You know, my old mother was there, and she's like, can I get my money back? And he's like, no. So I pretty much almost got arrested at that point in time because I felt so bad. You know, I wanted to like beat the shit out of everyone. I got escorted out by like their so-called security, a bunch of big ass meathead, juice head dudes. So that was my last experience with NPC at that point in time, and I was just like, you know, I'm done with this. And I, you know, solely had my my goals set on natural bodybuilding and all the natural organizations.
Yeah, I just want to interject for a second. I've heard of this happening before, and for me, it's upsetting because similar to your situation at the time where I live, and I said this in a previous episode, so I mean it might be a repeat for some of our listeners, but I live in an area where there's no real natural bodybuilding, and there is as you said, there's drug tested shows under our organization, which is the CPA, which is the Canadian equivalent of the IFBB, of the NPC. But I'm worried too that may at some point, you know, come into play with me, because for me it's like, you know, if there's one of these local shows that I can just pop into just for fun, you know, my family see me or whatever, like I don't want to have to worry about being, you know, DQ just because I have like represented another organization at some point. Like, you know, we should be able to have choice of like where we're going. I mean, it's really upsetting for me to hear anyone who's gone through a situation like that, because I mean, we're funding these federations. We pay their entry fees. You know, we pay the official tanners. Like they DQ people, or they mark them down in the scorecard. Like if you don't have the right tan from the host tanners, it really frustrates me sometimes just how monetary everything has become.
Exactly. And I remember you're talking about the tanning. I was big on Dream Tan. You know,
I was going to say, you better not have been wearing Dream Tan.
Are Dream Tan guys, you know. So the guys, he's like, yeah, you can't be putting this Dream Tan on in the back. It's going to make a mess. And at that point in time, my cousin was there, and she was wearing gloves and doing a perfect job, not even making anything of a mess. And so they were also trying to disqualify me on that as well, but they were really being sticklers on the pro card, the natural pro card. But they were trying to find any way to disqualify me, you know. And I was like, yeah. I'm the smallest guy here at the show. I was probably weighing about like less than 150, because I didn't get over 150 until like the last few years of my career, I'd say. You know, And it was until this year I was weighing about 155, I'd say, on stage when I won Universe. So I'm not heavy. I'm not a big guy when it comes to mass, you know.
Right.
So I ended up leaving that, and then that was in May. So then I was gung ho. I was like, all right, well now July, here we come. Here's Muscle Mayhem. This is a big show. And at that point in time, I knew I was going to be competing against some big guys, and they're big in the industry now. They're huge in the industry.
Yes.
And to come, the biggest name was at that point in time was Jeff Nippard, and
I remember that.
He was just a dorky little dude from
Newfoundland, my end of the woods, East Coast Canada, represent.
Yeah. Yeah, and like he at that point in time, I think he was dating Robin, and like Robin,
yes, he was.
Yeah, and so I knew them. Like I was friends with them at that point in time. That was like, I'd say back in the day before like they got Insta famous and people change and shit. So
I actually met them. I actually met them a few months later at my gym. Well, maybe it would have been about a year or two later, and at the very beginning of maybe 2015 or so. Yes, because I remember talking to Jeff about the show, and he was with Robin at the time. I just kind of popped into my gym randomly because he was skiing or whatever in my province. But yes, so Jeff Nippard, and so continue.
And then Francisco Nzunza, Frank.
Yes,
he was also competing in that show.
I follow him as well.
And I've become very, very good friends with Frank. And to this day, we're amazing friends. I even invited him to my wedding when we got married last year. So that's how close we are.
Nice.
So Jeff, yeah. So at that point in time, Instagram was kind of getting big. And so I was following people on Instagram saying, all right, who am I going to compete against at that point in time? And I knew the only way I can win this show, including my coach, Tyler, he goes, we have to get you peeled like a motherfucker. We have to get you, at that point in time, everyone would say you have to get Alberto Nunez shredded, Alberto Nunez shredded, because that was like the epitome of conditioning at that point in time. And so I was like, all right, man, I can do this shit easy. So
hell yeah.
I'm the type of person who has that mindset. When I want to do something, I'll do it. So Tyler, I was already peeled. And I remember that's how I got big. That was that year I got really big because I brought that conditioning. I brought that like alien conditioning to that show.
That's right.
But I wasn't big. I lacked a lot of muscularity at that point in time.
Right.
But I did bring the conditioning. So even Alberto, like he hit me up. He's like, damn, man. He's like, you brought the conditioning. He's like, you're equivalent to me right now. So that made me feel pretty good at that point in time because like he had been a huge name in the bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding industry for a long time, and he was living out in California at that time. Now he lives here in Colorado, so we every once in a while kick it and hang out.
Awesome.
So he's like, all right, and then Tyler's like, all right, well let's really push it. And I was the type of person that he would tell me to do something, and I would do that and more. And I've always been that type of person. So he's like, all right, we're going to drop your carbs, do another 30 minutes of cardio, and another session of HIIT this week. So I'm like, all right. So I would do 3 sessions of HIIT and, 2 hours of cardio. Because that was the mentality I had.
Damn.
Like, if I want to beat these guys, I have to bring it.
You must have been feeling pretty run down at this time, too, being on the diet for so long.
Oh, yeah. I was run down. But
doesn't matter. It's bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding. When it comes to natural bodybuilding, or when it comes to any type of elite pro level type thing, you have to push yourself. It's a mental sport. A lot of people these days I see don't have that discipline or don't have that fire in them, and then the guys that do are the best in the world, or like at the that elite level. But I would say that's about 5 to 10% of the guys in the sport, and the rest of the guys can't hack it.
So once you got up there, Muscle Mayhem stage, Francisco and Jeff Nippard and yourself, what was the rundown in your mind of what you think the judges were looking at? I know
I thought I had won the show, and after talking to Jeff and looking at, he podcasted a lot of stuff because at that point in time he was getting big, and he even admitted, he goes, Jose beat me. I think he beat me in that show. Because I came in peeled and I peaked perfectly.
Right.
And I remember there's this one shot where I'm like doing a most muscular next to Jeff, and I look I'm, and I will say it. I'll talk shit. I looked 100 times better than he did.
I know that shot. Everything's popping out. The quads are popping. You were much leaner, more dense.
Yeah. I was full. I was hard. That was probably one of the best shows I've ever peaked at.
Right.
And I thought I had won that show, and including Francisco, because he started doing his podcast too, and his YouTube channel at that point, because YouTube was getting big. And he's like, I think Jose won that show too. So everyone thought I had won that show, but I ended up losing to Jeff. So
did you see the judges' scorecards at any point?
I've been told I lost by 1 point after talking to a few people. I talked to Bob and T, and they're like, it was close. It was like a 1 point decision. Damn. It's like, God damn it.
I'm assuming they just kind of went with Jeff, with his.
All right, so Jeff is a little dude. Like when I met him, I was like, God damn, like you're short, and I'm 5'7", and I thought I was short. But
I know. I was thinking that when I met him too.
Fake their height when they're like, okay, I'm this height. And then I see him like, God damn, you're like an inch or two taller than you say you are, you tell the world, because he was little. He's so little on me. And he's well, I wouldn't say he's massive. He has good muscularity. His upper body is really, really thick. His chest and his back. His arms, not so. His legs, but he's got a thick upper body. He really the side chest and the rear double bicep, it's the side chest and the rear lat spread. He's got great shots in those because he has tremendous like mid back thickness, and his chest is super round. Triceps aren't bad, biceps not the greatest, but I feel like they must have perhaps given it to him just on over like structure and flow type of an appeal as opposed to like graininess and hardness. And at that point in time, I wasn't that big though. Like I wasn't that muscular. I was muscular, but I wasn't, where I am now. So that just gave me more fire. I was like, God damn it. I was like, I keep fucking losing to everyone by like 1 point. And as I kept losing to these guys ended up being, some of the top guys now in the game.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I can at least hold my own, and everyone's like, hey, you're holding your own against some of the best.
Yep.
And I was like, all right. So I just went back to the drawing board, the off season, and I did what I love to do. I like to eat and I like to lift hard. And this is the year that I started, building my legs up. So I started getting into powerlifting, but powerlifting and bodybuilding. So power building or whatever the hell they call it these days. But I was doing the powerlifting programs and doing the crazy ass hypertrophy programs that I do to this day. So
damn.
I would be busting my ass, but I would be eating tons and tons of food. Right. And I like to drink beer. I love to drink beer. And everyone knows I'm probably the biggest lush in the natural bodybuilding world when it comes to drinking beer. I admit it. I love to drink beer. So I would drink beer, lift, and I'm the type of person, like, I'll be a little hungover. I'm like, fuck it. I can still work out. So I'll still have my training session. And, like, beer's just calories. So I would just be training. And that was when I started I was like, okay, so I need to get bigger legs. I need to get stronger. What the hell can I do? So I'm a little crazy. So I'm like, I'm going to fucking do the Smoloff. And that's probably the hardest squat program in the world to this day.
Yes.
And I did it 3 times. I ran it 3 times. And I got hurt once, I remember. But I just ate, slept. And at that point in time, I had a good finance job, corporate finance. So I'd be sitting at a desk all day. And we had a gym.
Perfect for muscle building.
Yep. And we had a really nice gym in our building. So I'd always take my hour break, go train.
Nice.
And then after work, I'd go train again.
Oh.
So that was the way I always did it. And I did that for like almost 4 years. I did 2-a-days, Monday through Friday.
Holy crap. Wow.
And so I would do like a good hypertrophy session at lunch for 45 minutes to an hour hard. So I'd hit my back. And then at night, I'd go squat. Damn. And then while I was doing the Smoloff. And I think that's when I honestly started making the best gains in my life. And everyone's like, God damn, how can you do that? How was your recovery and stuff? I was like, man, I got my sleep and I ate a lot. And I ate a lot of food. I was to the point where I was actually like lean gaining. I was doing like, you know, the stuff only BBCs can do, you know, like gain lean muscle mass. And
Right.
So at that point in time, yeah, I made some good gains. And then I think I took 2 years off from that after that. And then I came back.
Off season. Nice.
Yeah, I had a long off season where I was really training hard. And I would say I would train Monday through Friday 2 times a day. And then Saturday I train once and I take Sunday off. But some days on my 2-a-days, I would not train extremely hard. I'd have like a little deload week. You know, it's just like try to get a nice pump. And then, you know, at night I do something else. But I was always going to the gym twice a day because I had that opportunity. And I wasn't married at that time either. Because now when you're married, you know, in a relationship, things are different. You don't have as much time to train. So I was just really busting my ass to the point where a lot of people are like, how, you know, to this day, a lot of people think that's not the optimal approach. And I don't think it is the optimal approach, but if you have your mind set on one thing, and if, you know, you really want to get there, I think you can do it.
It's going to work. Yeah.
It's going to work no matter what. Because I see some cookie cutter plans. There's some natural bodybuilding protocols that I see these days. And I'm just like, what in the fuck is this?
Right.
This is like my warm up, you know?
Right.
And I was like, I don't see how you're going to improve your physique if you're going to, you know, do this. And this is one thing that I always did was every year I competed, and I competed back-to-back years. I always improved. A lot of people are like, you cannot improve year to year to year to year.
Right.
You can if you eat enough food in the off season.
Yes.
In my opinion.
I've seen it done before. It's that much more difficult. It's that much more time sensitive. It's that much more like go. Like I've seen a lot of people do it. But it is rare. I agree.
Yeah. Because a lot of these people like to stay lean around and look pretty for pictures and for the ladies and stuff. And you know, if you're, Elkins. So if you're looking to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world, you really have to focus on eating and, you know, putting on that weight. And if you want to look, if you want to look pretty and get likes on Instagram and not really focus about being, you know, an elite natural bodybuilder, then you're on that level. And
100% agreed. Two different things to that focus on that don't, you think they go together, but they don't always.
Yeah. Or the lean gaining thing that I've been seeing recently, you know, for the past few years. And then I see a lot of guys these days are like, yeah, fuck that. I can't do that anymore. I tried it. It didn't work. Right. You know? So
what happened with are we into 2017 now?
So at that point in time, I think I was, into 2017. So I came back in 2017. And at that point in time, that's when I started doing very, very well. I had brought up my legs and my outer sweep, my quad sweep. That's what I'm known for these days.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it had to do with the way I squat and the way I train. So I'm a high bar squatter. I did low bar for one powerlifting meet, and I couldn't stand it. I hated it. So I've always been high bar, and I wouldn't just squat. I would do so much for my leg session. So I would do squats, sumo deads, hack squat, leg press, lunges, leg extension, leg curls. You know, those were that was like my normal leg day. And I would be in the gym, angle. And I'd be in there for a good 2.5 hours for a leg day, you know. And I trained legs. My frequency was high. I used to train legs 3 to 4 times a week. When I was doing the small love, I was doing it 4 times a week. But then when I was doing hypertrophy, I was doing it three times a week, around there. Damn. You know, and that's what really brought my legs up. A lot of people don't like to train legs or don't like to, you know, really, you know, focus. And then I got my squat up pretty high. You know, I was squatting, repping good amounts of weight for how much I weighed. You know, I could put up 405s for reps of 8 to 10 when I was at my peak years ago.
High bar and deep, eh?
Yeah, and I was doing up to 6 plates on hack squat and stuff. So that was my and I was only weighing about like 190 in the off season at that point in time.
Right.
So, you know, I was really strong. That was my strong point, were my legs. And I showed up 2017 and I did my first pro competition that year. Well, not my first pro, but it was one of my it was my first competition of 2017. It was a pro show. And it was a very small show. I ended up doing an NFF show. So I ended up doing the same WNBF show, but they changed the organization, you know, because Natural Bodybuilding is like that. And
I've never heard of the NFF.
So the NFF is part of the IPE. So the IPE is formerly the IFPA.
IFPA, right? Yorton Cup, so, those people.
Yep. So those guys. And then now the OCB and God knows how many other organizations are out there.
It's gotten confusing to follow to some degree.
Big old shit show, to be honest, these days. So I ended up competing against Miles. And Miles is like a 3 or 4 time world champion, I think. 3 or 4 time world champion. And he's old now. But the year before that, he competed at the Mayhem and took 2nd place. And then probably the biggest pro stack show, because I had a client, Poncho, that competed in the pro show.
Oh, yeah.
And there was Bada competed, Courtney Samuel. There were so many top guys in there. And Miles took 2nd. And I saw him, and I honestly thought he should have taken 1st place the way he looked. So I knew when I saw Miles the day of polygraphs, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm going to have to battle some tough guys, you know?
Yep.
But I knew at that point in time I had brought up my legs. I had brought up my physique, my overall physique. And my conditioning was superb. It was on point at that point in time. And I think at that point in time I was in the 150s by then. So I wasn't in the 140s anymore. So I was like 153, somewhere around there on stage. And I ended up losing to Miles. Once again, I lost. I took 2nd place in that pro show, and I was a little upset about that because a lot of people that had seen that show, I don't know if you saw pictures.
Yeah, you know what? I actually remember seeing the video, and I remember thinking that you won from every angle except for maybe the shots from the rear.
Yep, exactly. So him being a Texas guy and his show being in Austin, I think, you know, he had the hometown crowd. So
right.
I ended up losing that show, but I felt very, very good that year. And then I went on to, what was that? The Muscle Mayhem Pro Show. So it's the USAs, the Pro USAs. And then that year, so that was a few months later, within that year. And then I ended up competing against some of the biggest names of bodybuilding. So I competed against Sam Okinola. So he is the prior year IPE world champ. Yep. And Prince Bada was there.
Right.
Was there. There was a lot of big names at that show. I did well against Sam. I did well against, you know, some of the biggest dudes in the game. I can do this, you know, especially as a lightweight, you know. I think I'm going to be there, you know, as a lightweight. So I came and competed in 2018. I prepped again, back-to-back years. Damn. And I made really good gains, I think, in between 2017 and 2018 in the off season when I was
how long was the off season? I got to know.
So Mayhem ended in July. Mm-hmm. So July, August, September, November, December, January. And I prepped I think my off season was until June. Yeah, June of 2017, because I was so it was almost a full year off season. And at that point in time, I got married in May of last year. Yeah, so May last year, and then I started prep right when I got back from my wedding. The day back from my wedding, I'm like, all right, it's on.
Game time.
So, and my wife was really supportive at that. Nice. You know, she's always been a supportive wife. You know, she's always pushed me. She's like, all right, you know, you're going to win, or you want to win. So I'm going to be there 100%, which is a great thing. These days, it's tough to have a partner that's going to support you. Yes. And that is able to understand what you're going through when it comes to the diet, to your mental discipline, and to put up with you. Because as a bodybuilder, we have mood swings, especially when we're getting very, very lean. We feel like shit. And our libidos don't work. I'm one of the guys where my dick doesn't work after, I'd say, 6 months of training. I'm just done. I have no libido. So my wife's just, unfortunately. So
for our listeners, this is a very common thing that many of us do go through. It is varying degrees and how much it affects different people, but it is quite common if you weren't aware.
So yeah, bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding is very unhealthy as you think about it. A lot of people are like, oh, it's natural, so you're not taking any drugs, so it's healthy. Nah, not really, because you're really getting down and you're starving yourself to very, very low body fat levels, and you're screwing up all the hormones in your body. You're screwing up a bunch of shit in your body. So
especially if you want to come in diced and in like pro level condition, you have to make that sacrifice. It can't be done any other way.
Yeah, you're going to destroy your body as a natural bodybuilder. So I ended up I would say this would be the hardest prep of my entire life this last year, by far. Damn. The hardest prep I've ever had. So right before my wedding, flight.
Oh man, that's rough.
Or 2 days afterwards, Worlds. So I was like, fuck. So as you know, when you're that peeled, your cortisol levels, your stress levels, everything fucking just goes.
Yep, so I've been ruined by that before. I talked about it in the last podcast just a little bit, but yes, I can confirm you can get water retention very easily at the end of prep due to cortisol.
But my cortisol was up the ass. On top of that, I didn't sleep for 24 hours because of my dog. We were at the vet all night long. They didn't put him down until like 4 a.m, and then our flight was at 6. So I went home. I just grabbed the bags, threw everything in my my bag, and then we took off to the airport. At that point in time, my wife is a complete mess. She can't stop crying, and we're flying to LA for Worlds. Show up to Worlds, and I'm on zero sleep. My cortisol level's fucking off the roof still. I'm trying to help my wife, calm down because she's freaking out at the same time. She's a complete mess because she loved that dog.
Yes.
And I would say 6 hours later, I find out that I need to cut weight to get to the batten weight class. So we ended up doing the worst thing possible. I sat in a sauna. I did like a Epsom salt bath.
Yep.
To try to cut as much water. So I was with Chris, my buddy Poncho, and my buddy Teddy. So they're all the Chris and everyone knows who Chris Bearcat is in natural bodybuilding, and then Teddy Pantelis, he's a pro bodybuilder, and
New
then
York guy.
And then Poncho, he's another pro bodybuilder. So they're friends of mine. So they were in my camp pretty much helping Universe that past year or this last year. So
For sure.
I was extremely disappointed with the way the season ended for me, but it's life, you know.
Yes.
I ended up losing a dog, and you know, dogs are part of your family, so it was extremely hard to lose my dog. So it's all good. Besides that, yeah, Chris and I, you know, we still talk to this day. You know, we don't agree on a lot of things, but those are different topics that I don't want to discuss. You know, with like personal matters and stuff like that. But
sure.
But yeah, he's a nice guy. You know, I think
so. So it is a fairly friendly rivalry at the end of the day, then.
Yeah, it's a friendly rivalry. We don't have animosity towards anyone towards anyone. You know, I don't want to get the shit out of the guy when I see him. So we're good.
Well, I thought a little situation like that was good for the sport, and that kind of circles around to my next question is, considering you've had so many experiences competing over the years, different federations, NBC, 4 different natural federations, do you think natural bodybuilding is currently getting enough attention, and are the athletes getting enough exposure?
I don't think bodybuilding in general is getting enough attention, to be honest with you, natural or IFBB. Bodybuilding to me, or to us, as bodybuilders, is something so unique and so cool, you know. But to the rest of the world, it's kind of a freak show, to be honest with you, when it comes to actual bodybuilding. The fitness world, one thing, but like bodybuilding, getting peeled and looking crazy, that's kind of people aren't into that. I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of people aren't into that. You know, my lady, and including my wife, she goes, "You look like shit when you're down to nothing." She goes, you know, you look sick, including everyone else. You're like, and everyone else as a bodybuilder is like, bro, you look amazing. But to the normal person, it's not appealing. So I think bodybuilding, I don't know if bodybuilding is ever going to make a huge name in this, you know, in the whole thing of sports, to be honest, because it's such a small niche that people like, you know, like me and you love to do.
Do you think it would be improved if there was more of an overall governing body, like in the sense that the NPC is so correlated with the IFBB? If there was perhaps one maybe overarching natural federation?
Think, for natural bodybuilding, I think there's way too much bullshit going on right now. I think there's way too many promoters, you know, trying to all like get the piece of the money instead of just all putting it to one organization. And you know, we've heard it over and over again that they've continually tried to do this and do that, but I honestly think, from what I've seen with my own eyes over the years, it's everyone is money hungry. Everyone wants money for themselves. And the thing is, the promoters want the money, but the bodybuilders who bust their asses off don't make shit for money. In natural bodybuilding, the best of the best don't even make livings off natural bodybuilding. A lot of people are like, whoa, you're a pro natural body, you must be a fucking millionaire. You won Mr. Universe, you must be fucking a millionaire, bro. You must be driving a Bugatti down the street. And I'm like, nah, bro. I have a normal 9-to-5 job. You know what I mean?
Did you win any money for winning the Pro Universe? Was there a check?
Yeah, I won some money. I'm not to disclose, but it's some nice money, you know. I got a, you know, a nice little check. And, you know, I've made some money, you know, bodybuilding and other shows, winning shows, you know, stuff like that. But it's not the type of money that people expect, or it's not the type of money that you're going to live off of. You know what I mean?
Right.
Very, very few people, even in the IFBB, make enough money to live off of, you know? So it's not a sport it's not a sport to get into to make money. If you're competing, maybe if you're doing other things, coaching and doing the whole YouTube aspect and all that other stuff, yeah. But if you're gung-ho about just competing 100%, that's your passion, that's what you want to do, you're not going to make money on that.
I think a great example of this is like someone like Brian Whitaker, who has a very involved job, you know, being a professor at Oklahoma State University, but still is you know, the lightweight world champion several times over in the WNBF. Most people who are winning, I would say, pro shows probably are not making even a living in the fitness industry. I mean, some might be trainers or whatever, but yeah, for the most part,
the top guys in the sport of bodybuilding are just your normal average Joes that have their normal jobs, that love to train like I do every single day, and they have that mental discipline, you know, and they don't care about other people. They're just there to win, or there to show up and, you know, compete against the best. And
Right.
those honestly are the top guys in the sport, like a Siobhan Cunningham. You know, I had talked to him so many times. I'm like, man, why aren't you like in all this stuff and that? He's like, man, I just compete because this is what I love to do. And he's good at it.
See, it surprises me too that someone like, as we mentioned earlier, like Jeff Nippard. To me, it's shocking that he doesn't want to compete more, because I think he's someone, if he were, you know, work.
I don't think those guys, just even including like Chris and those guys, it took Chris a long time to even get that mental discipline. Like, I remember talking to him when we were competing for Universe, and he goes, yeah, I thought I looked good, but I really didn't want to push it to that next level. A lot of guys don't have that mental discipline to get to that
Right.
conditioning, or get to that conditioning beyond conditioning, which a very few amount of people can get to, you know? So a lot of those guys were making money, and I give them much respect. You know, they're making lots of money on YouTube and doing, you know, that stuff, but they're not that level of bodybuilder. They're not at my level. They're not like, you know, at a Sam level, a Siobhan, you know, they're not like at a world elite level. And I think it has to do because they don't have that mental discipline to get to that next level. You know, they're focused on other things.
Right.
Which is okay, man. No disrespect. I give them the best. You know,
Right.
they're making their money, so more power to them.
So,
you know?
So if you were to come under retirement and Jeff Nippard was to come under retirement, who would win that competition in 2020?
Oh man, 2020. I think I could easy. I almost beat him last time, and I come in way more conditioned now than I did back then. And I'll come in every time I come compete, I get more conditioned and more conditioned. So conditioning isn't a problem with me.
Right.
I think it's just, you know, putting on more lean, dense muscle. And I honestly think I'm sitting now at 190, and this is like some of the best 190 I look at compared to previous 190s. You know, every year you go up to that same off-season weight. Give me a few years, but I honestly think I'll bring up my upper body to match my legs. I think I can easily win a lightweight world championship easily. So
I think too, some
and
of the muscle.
I'm not. I don't think I could. I think I could beat him, but I'm more. My main focus is getting a world championship. I could give two shits less about any YouTuber. You know, I'm more focused on, you know, that world championship. That's something that I've always had in my head. I want to win a world championship.
100%. I totally agree too that the more times you diet down, the more times you push that conditioning. It almost like it, even if you get fat in the off season, there's some lines that just kind of stay there. At least I found with myself,
Exactly.
As I'm dieting down now, like I'm, you know, my body.
New things pop out way faster than before.
Yeah.
Like, you know, 100%. My quads are already in, like compared to like back in the day. Things like that. Your glutes come in faster. Those guys don't compete. So they compete once. I don't even remember the last time they ever competed. So, you know, they every time they compete, they don't even come in peeled. So they still have a long ways to go if they even want to reach the elite level of bodybuilding.
And I believe too, like you really do need to have that push at the end to get yourself to the next level. And it even does go a little bit beyond just getting in shape for the show, because like I said, then when you come back on the diet, whatever it is, a year or two from now, you like your body just has that capacity to go there. And it's like, it's probably a combination of just your physiology changing a little bit and you being a little bit more mentally disciplined every time and just getting better at dieting. But I think if you don't really push it to that crazy level at the end where you're feeling like shit and, you know, you're doing, you know, more cardio or activity than you want and carbs are way lower than you want, like you won't get those rewards. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You have to push your body. You have to push your body past its limits. And when you think you've already pushed your body past its limits, you can push it more. Your mind's very powerful. I remember, like I told you, it was like 2 or 3 weeks before Worlds. I woke up in the morning. You know, I just woke up to like go to work, and I blacked out. I just woke up and I like started walking to the bathroom, and I just fell over. Boom, wow. And I just fell. Damn. And my wife's like, "What the fuck? Are you all right? You're still in bed?" I'm like, "Huh?" I just got up. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, I went straight. The first thing I always do is take a leak, and then I go weigh myself during prep. And then I was like, ugh, I think I had hit a prep low that day. And I was like, all right, I feel like fucking death. And let's go. Normal day again.
Hell
Breakfast,
yeah.
work, training. Let's,
Just
and
another day on prep.
I wasn't the type of person. Well, I fainted, so that means something's not right. I should quit bodybuilding. I was like, nah, fuck it, let's go.
Yep.
And that's something that I don't see that many guys do. There's a few. The top guys at Worlds, all those guys that were competing at Worlds and stuff like that. That's the elite of the elite. But most guys these days, they're not able to push, not able to have that mental discipline.
So, kind of circling around here to just people with mental discipline and whatnot. If someone was a younger bodybuilder looking to compete, looking to say win a world title eventually, or just say get WNBF pro status, what advice would you give them starting out?
If you're young, take a few years to really put on muscle. Don't be dieting down all the time. Don't diet down, especially in your early 20s. Those are the years that your testosterone's your highest, when you're actually growing.
And it sounds like you made a lot of great growth into your 30s. I
did make a lot of great growth. I think I was a late bloomer, to be honest with you. I still look pretty young, especially when I diet down. I'm like almost 40 years old, and everyone's like, dude, you look like you're 20, 25.
Yep.
When I was 18, 19, I looked like I was 10, 12. I had like those tiny, my balls probably didn't drop till I was probably in my 19 or 20, to be honest with you. I really didn't start growing actual facial hair until like my mid 20s. So I don't know. I think I was like a late bloomer, to be honest with you.
You're giving me hope that I can still make some gains too. I'm going to turn 30 in November.
Oh yeah, man, you got plenty of time.
Yeah,
I'm still making gains in my late 30s. There's other guys making gains in their late. Shit, look at what's his name, Jeff, the guy from 3DMJ.
Jeff Alberts.
Jeff Alberts, yeah, he's like 45, 46, and he's
he looks good now. He posted a front relax the other day. His like chest looks full. Everything's popping. He's
looking great. You can still always make gains into your 30s and 40s. Some of the best guys are in their 40s.
Yeah, in fact, I would say a lot of them. It's a good reminder that a lot of the guys at the top of the natural bodybuilding game are
old.
Yeah, they're 40-ish, and that's just how long it takes to develop the muscle maturity, the things we mentioned, pushing the conditioning. People don't understand when you get diet down, there's like a certain like graininess, and just because you have some lines in your glutes doesn't mean they're going to be as deep as someone who's been doing it for 10 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's different levels, and you really need to have a good eye to see it. And sometimes it doesn't even come through in pictures and videos. You have to be there in person to just like witness it to get a grasp on it. And that's why it's so important to compete, to see where you stand against people.
Some of the guys at Worlds this last year, the guys who were in the senior class or whatever, what do we call that senior class now? The
Masters?
The Masters, yeah, exactly. Some of those guys had the best conditioning I had ever seen. They lacked a lot of muscle, but these guys were fucking grainy as hell. Like they had veins coming up their calves, up their hamstrings, up their ass. I was like, Jesus Christ. So these guys, have been putting in years on years on years of work, but some guys didn't have that muscle mass, that you see these days.
Right.
And a lot of Italian guys, I saw that recently. Some like who's that? The Baba guy, the guy who's won the last 2 years. That guy,
crazy.
He's freaky.
Wide.
I sometimes ask myself, can this guy really be fucking natural? But then I've seen other guys, so
I definitely believe in someone like him. He's just some of his gifts are just that his shoulder girdle is so wide, his waist is so small, which is, a genetic thing. I know his muscularity is crazy, but you just got to think just how genetically gifted that frame is to hold the muscle, which is just, something that, of course, steroids, cannot affect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's some guys that, you look at them and you're like, wow, it's jaw dropping. Even myself, when I'm backstage competing against the best in the world, I'm like, I just applaud them. I'm like, you guys have really busted your asses, including everyone that I competed against this year, especially at the World Championships. I gave them the utmost respect because all those guys put in so much time and dedication to compete there. And that they did exactly the same thing you did, And that's another thing. That's why I respect those guys so much more than all these other guys that you see on social media and all that shit. I'm like, you guys have no idea what it takes to get to this level compared to all these other guys.
And it's one thing for our listeners or for anyone's listening to this podcast to kind of hear these stories and think of what someone's going through and just kind of like try and equate to it. But it's a whole different thing to go through it yourself. And you earn an appreciation for other people who come in like crazy conditioned, like, and like you can't just look at a picture and understand what everyone's gone through until you've gone through it yourself. You know what I mean? So I totally know where you're coming from, in that aspect. I want you to take a minute now to just kind of talk about your coaching. I know you have one really shredded guy who does the Pan American Games, which is quite interesting to me. I'd be curious to know a little bit about him.
All right, so Jorge Callejas, he is from Nicaragua. So I'm from Nicaragua as well. I was born in Managua.
Oh, I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm from Central America, and there's 3 of us that are big in the sport. So myself, Francisco Montealegre, he's
I know him. He's crazy
at the moment, but I'm a good friends with him as well. He lives down in Texas. And then Jorge is actually family friends with my family, and come behold, we all were bodybuilding freaks for some reason. So yeah,
he's not American based, is he? Right now, he
lives in Miami, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So right now he lives in Miami.
Interesting.
So he has lived in Nicaragua most of his life, in Managua. So as you know, the IFBB split up, I think, a few years ago. And they split into 2 different organizations, the IFBB and then the international
IFBB Elite or something. Yes, I can't keep straight who is who, but I do. Yeah.
So the one that Jim Manning has is one IFBB, and the other one's by some Spanish guy and out in Europe. And then
Rafael Santora, is that it?
Yeah. So he wants to make what we would say a natural IFBB.
Right.
So it's a drug-tested IFBB. In every competition that Jorge has competed in, he has actually taken a urinalysis and gotten back the results. So I'm sort of impressed by that because a lot of organizations don't do that. Wow. So I coached him all last season, and he won every single show I coached him with.
He looks crazy. You guys got to look this guy up. I'll like tag him in the show poster or whatever, but he does look insane.
So right now he's been prepping with me. I've been coaching him for the past 2 years, and he wants to compete at the Pan American Games. And the Pan American Games is part of the Olympics. It's like a precursor of the Olympic Games. So it's an Olympic sanctioned sport.
Interesting.
So it's pretty cool. And we've all of us as natural bodybuilders wish that one day we could actually get to an Olympics, of bodybuilding or like an Olympic event. So he's almost to that point. And so he's going to be competing at the Pan American Games this August. And he's also told me just recently, I'd say about the last 10 days, that he goes, you know what? A lot of people don't think I'm natural, because I compete in the IFBB. So I'm going to compete at WNBF Worlds as well.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, all right, let's do it, bro. He has to get his pro card and compete in a competition, or we'll see if we can, transfer his card over.
Tell him to stay away from Natural Mania in 15 weeks. I don't want to face him.
Well, no. What date is that?
September 29th or 28th.
Oh, he may. I don't know. So
I shouldn't have even mentioned that.
So after he hasn't decided on any shows right now. After the Pan American Games, August 10th is when he's actually going to say, all right, we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss what shows we want to do, But I think he's thinking about doing Universe in October.
Okay.
And then doing, because it's so close, after to Worlds. And then do Worlds. So if he does Universe, I'll go out there with him for sure. And then
New York?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. We can hang out then. That's Natural Mania is the amateur portion of the Pro Universe.
All right, for sure. Yeah, I'll go out there. Hopefully, the promoter lets me give out the award for the next Mr. Universe.
That'd be awesome. They should do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I go out there, they'll probably let me do that. So that would be cool. Yeah, and it'd be really cool to meet you as well in person, and then go hang out. And then afterwards, but he would be a pro, I think, at that point. So you're competing for your pro card at that show, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then after that, he wants to do Worlds. So I honestly think he has a really, really good chance of doing well out in a World Championship.
Oh yeah, this guy is next level. I'm going to tag him in the post and just people can see. But I don't think he's not very big.
One of the most dense backs, and he's just so aesthetic. He has very good lines. He has good form, shoulders. He looks great, head to toe. So I honestly think if we can maintain his conditioning, we're trying to improve his conditioning for this upcoming show, and then hopefully just start reversing him out little by little and see how he does this fall. So we'll see what happens.
Incredible, nice.
But yeah, he's an amazing guy, and he's got that mental discipline. I'll tell him to do something, and he'll do more than I tell him, and that's the type of mindset you have to have if you want to get to that level.
Yep.
Your coach can tell you do this, eat this, but there's so much more than just following your specific macros and following a specific training protocol. You have to go above and beyond if you want to get to that next level. And he's been able to do that.
And it's funny because I mentioned this in the past. I don't want to circle myself too much, but there was a time when natural bodybuilding was getting a lot of exposure, and it was during the time when like Matt Ogus was doing a lot of vlogging and stuff. And I found he kind of like put out the kind of vibe that was like, it was not what you're saying. It was very much, it was like, I'm going to hit these macros, but I'm going to be a little loose with it. It was like, I'm going to try and peak for this show, but I'm going to go out to Chipotle the night before and put that in my macros. Like it was that kind of vibe.
He did that, yeah, but he did not look that good on stage. You know what I mean? He looked good 100%. He looked nice on TV. He looked good on his YouTube and his Instagram pictures. But when, truth be told, when he got on stage, he wasn't even close to the level that everyone thought he was at. You know what I mean?
And then I found, he did less videos, and then some of these British guys kind of took over the social media front in the way that they're being very meticulous with everything. They're, hitting their diet 100%. They're, making sure they're lean X amount of weeks out. They're not YOLOing their preps as much as people were.
I'm pretty psyched to see AJ come up this year. I met him back in at Worlds. He was a really, really nice guy.
Yeah, those guys love bodybuilding.
And AJ, man, he's putting in some work right now. I've been following him. I've been trolling him a little bit in the on the Instagram, and he's looking good. He's strong as shit right now. And
he's a strong kid.
I think he's making some good gains. So when he cuts back down, he's gonna put a mark on the sport, especially for his country. So he's doing really, really well.
And he's not staying lean for IG either. So good on you, AJ.
Man. Yeah, you have to eat, man. You have to eat. Alberto Nunez, another guy here from Colorado. He's big right now. He's weighing about 200. He's about as heavy as I am. And
he's one guy who's coming back into being. I found he kind of had a bit of
he had that time where he had that lean time where he wanted to be lean all the time. And then I had that conversation with him, and I think other people did. I'm like, man, I was like, you need to eat in the off season if you really want to put on some,
Well, I feel like for a while that message got lost.
Everyone's trying to look pretty.
Yeah.
All the time.
And it came with social media, but it also kind of came with, remember when reverse dieting got popular in like 2013, 2014? People thought it would be like a good thing to reverse diet for 6 months after a show. And if you could somehow be in like 500 carbs and have striated glutes, like you were winning at bodybuilding. But I think more people tried that. It didn't work out for anyone.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It didn't work out. Now everyone's just back to bulking. And I went through the same thing. I tried staying lean, didn't work. Felt like I was smashing my head with a hammer and wasn't getting anywhere.
I never did that. I was one of those guys. I'm like, man, you guys need to eat, because you could see in the off season that they weren't putting up the type of weight that they would be putting up if they were eating.
Yep.
Because you need to have extra weight on you. To have the leverages to be able to lift heavy weight.
It's the only really tool or thing in our toolbox as natural bodybuilders to put on muscle is that, kind of decently large caloric surplus. And it's not just, it's the food coming in, but like if you have more body fat, your body it's not going to require the amount of you're going to have this extra amount of energy, and it's not dipping into body fat stores at any given time. Like if you have that extra fat and you have that, like you said, the leverage advantage.
And it's not getting super fat too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
But
I probably pushed things too far.
But it's losing your abs, and being at that point where you no longer have abs and you don't care about it. You're focused on putting on muscle in the off season.
Yep.
So that's something that a lot of people this day still have issues with, They're
Yep.
so focused on what they look like. So
100%.
if you're trying to be a natural bodybuilder to, you know, and put on muscle, you need to eat no matter what. So that's
100%.
one thing I've always
100%.
told everyone.
I've been saying this for a while now too, and it's cool to hear someone else kind of echoing it, because it could sometimes get lost, I think. You know, people are big with influencers these days, and if like someone could,
Influencers, what we call them.
yeah,
I call them
I mean,
bullshitters.
bullshitters. I mean, someone could come out 2 weeks from now and be big for a while and have a big following and kind of preach the lean gains approach, and it could you know, there's trends in bodybuilding, you know, it could come back around for a while.
Or the
and
natties that say they're lean all year and they're making like you know what
Right.
I mean. The guys that are getting leaner and they're getting bigger every single year and they're always lean and getting bigger. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You know,
Yeah.
that's just an eye. As a real natural bodybuilder, you know, and I've called so many of those guys out in the past. I'm like, man, I was like, you're not a real natural you're not a natural bodybuilder, you know,
Right.
you know what I mean? So that's
100%.
going off tangent, but you know what I mean. And
It's all good.
aspect.
I think we'll wrap things up now. Do you have any closing thoughts, Jose?
No, man, I was able to, you know, talk to everyone about my past experiences in bodybuilding, the way I train. I love to, I'm the type of person that puts in 100%. I work my ass off no matter what. You have to follow your diet, but you always have to put in that extra oomph in whatever you do if you want to get to that next level. And like I tell everyone I coach, it's not overnight. It's going to take years on years on years on years.
Yep.
You know, like I'm in my late 30s now. It didn't start, you know, I did start training last year. It's going to take, especially if you're not taking any drugs, it's going to take decades to get to where you want to get. You know, if you want to look specifically to someone, you know, I want to look like that guy. Right. As a natural bodybuilder, I'm like, okay, well, it's going to take you maybe 10 to 15 years to look like that guy. Yep. You know, no bullshit. And I tell my clients that, you know. Besides that, no, everything, it was great meeting you. Thank you again for having me on your show. And I hope one day that I do return, and we'll see.
Yes.
You know, we will see. And in the meantime, I'm going to be putting in work. And yeah, there's a lot of good upcoming young kids that I see right now that are that really aren't bullshitting now. You know, they're putting in a lot of work. They're training hard. They're eating. They're doing everything right. So I think there's going to be a lot of competition when I do come back if I do come back in, say, 5-6 years. You know what I mean?
Phenomenal. We certainly do hope you come back at some point. I'd love to see you on stage again. I always love following all of your preps, and you know, you're one of the first guys I thought of getting on the show when I did start doing it. So, yeah, that was a great interview, man. You really covered everything I wanted. I wanted to hear. So, I think for now, Natty Muscle Radio will sign out. Hope you guys have a good week. Let me know if you have any suggestions of any other guests you'd like to hear in this podcast. But for now, we are out. Peace, guys.
All right, man. Thank you, bro.
Thank you guys for watching. If you guys like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.